Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Cordell. I'm a senior field application engineer for Samsung LED. Today, we are here at the Samsung booth at Light Fair 2023. We're going to have a discussion about the impact of lighting on learning. Today, I'm not only going to tell you what this product is about, but you're going to find out how it works. So why don't we get started? I am so excited to show you a new technology that Samsung has developed. We call the Samsung Energizing Lighting Solution. Today, I will explain exactly what the Samsung Energizing Lighting Solution is, and I'll also tell you how it works. Now, this particular technology can be used in many different types of applications, but today I want to focus on one that's extremely important to all of us, and that's our children and their education. Getting a quality education is extremely important today, and attending a major college or university requires a lot of effort on part of the student. Many students have to focus, and the competition is extremely fierce. This requires them to actually be the best they can be at their studies. To actually get a quality education, these students must remain alert and focused on their course material that they are studying. So how do they cope with the pressure to perform well in school and actually keep up? Well, you can tell this guy is not coping very well. I don't think that's going to work for him. So we actually found out that a lot of students use caffeine in order to stay alert. This graph here shows a study that was done, a survey of high school and middle school students in Korea. 1/3 of them consume highly caffeinated beverages, and about 85% consume those beverages because they had fatigue and sleepiness they were trying to combat. Another interesting fact from this is 10% thought that by drinking these caffeinated beverages that would improve their concentration for their studies. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I love a good cup of coffee. But I do find it concerning that our young children are finding the need to highly caffeinate in order to do their studies. So I asked myself, is there a way to actually not require this? Is there a way we can help these students improve their learning without the caffeination? Well, let's look back at early humans. Early humans didn't have easy access to caffeine, right? I don't think there were many coffee shops at street corners in 10,000 BC. So what early humans had to rely on is something totally different. It's called the blue sky effect. And if you don't know what that is in the morning time when the sun rises, it brightens the sky. That enhanced blue light, which happens to be about 480 nanometers, is key. That blue, rich cyan light actually suppresses melatonin levels. This made these people more alert, made them more focused, and thus more successful in finding food. These people thrived and survived, and they passed along those traits to all of us here today. So, could we possibly use this technology to improve the students' work, right? Can we use lighting and that blue sky effect to actually help these students? Well, here's a list of reports and papers from academia and government agencies that actually look at the effect of lighting on learning ability, performance, and energy of the test subjects. Every one of these papers come to the same conclusion, that if we increase the amount of cyan, cooler white light, we will improve focus and energy level in the humans under it. Now, there are a couple of ways we can take advantage of this. One method would be to actually just crank up the lumens, right? We could increase the brightness of every room, but unfortunately, that's going to waste a lot of energy and create glare problems in those spaces. Another possible solution was said, well, instead of 3,500 or 4,000 Kelvin, let's shift the CCT up to 5,000 and 6,500 Kelvin. Well, that would solve the efficacy problem. And if that works, why aren't we doing it today? Well, the reason is nobody likes 6,500 Kelvin lighting, right? It's very bad for the indoor environment. So what if I told you there's a way to increase the cyan amount of light without changing the color CCT and without just blasting up the brightness? Well, that's exactly the results you get with the Samsung Energizing Lighting Solution. We actually enhance the cyan wavelength to actually improve concentration and thus improve focus for the subjects underneath that area. We do this to get the students better results in their environment. The focus to do this requires optimizing that spectrum such that we maximize the melatonin suppression in the wavelengths most effective for suppressing melatonin. So now that I told you what it is, this is our offering. So we have two different package types. We're offering it in a 30-30 at 80 CRI from 3,000 Kelvin to 6,500 Kelvin, and at 90 CRI to 2,700 Kelvin to 6,500 Kelvin. We're also offering it in a 28-35 package to go at 4,000 Kelvin or 5,000 Kelvin. So let's compare this to traditional conventional LED. This chart actually shows two different graphs for LEDs. The gray line is the conventional LED. The blue line is our energy enhanced LED. As you can see, as you increase the amount of light output, you increase the amount of what's called MEDI, and that's melanopic equivalency daylight illumination. Now that's a mouthful, say that 3 times. So as you can see here, since we enhance the cyan region, we get more MEDI than a conventional LED at the same lumen level. So we actually get about 23% more MEDI than a conventional LED. To put that another way, if you wanted to use a conventional LED to achieve the same MEDI, you would have to drive it about 19% brighter to get the same results. So you can see you don't have to actually blast the lumens in order to get there. So I know everybody's probably thinking, yeah, okay, that all sounds great, Mike, but does it work? Right? Does it really work? Well, Samsung asked the same question. And so we conducted a clinical trial with 30 individuals. We set up 2 identical rooms, no natural light. It was all artificial light. One room had energizing LEDs. The other room had conventional LEDs. We allowed these subjects to spend 3 days and 2 nights in each room. While they were doing those, spending that time, they actually conducted D2 concentration tests, and they performed Sudoku tests, and we actually measured the melatonin level in their saliva. And so what we found was about an 18% decrease in the amount of melatonin when exposed to our energizing light. But what was more interesting, there was an increase in their concentration level on the D2 test, which resulted in better scores on the Sudoku test. So we had positive results here. And we were like, okay, this is really good. So, but that's a scientific experiment, right? That was a controlled environment. What would happen if you actually applied this technology to a real classroom? Would it actually help the students in that real classroom environment? Well, that's exactly what was done. We have today here Professor Daniel Robinson. He is the Associate Dean of Research at the University of Texas at Arlington. And he was part of an experiment at Mooreville High School in Mississippi to evaluate in the classroom the effect of our energizing lighting solution. He is here today, and he is going to share with you some of his results that they found. Please give a warm welcome to Professor Daniel.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm probably the guy in the building that knows the least amount about lighting. I'm an education guy. I study educational outcomes like learning, performance in the classroom. And so working with Samsung and FineLight on this project, we combined lighting and looked at its effects on student performance in the classroom. So I'm going to describe the experiment we did at Mooreville High School in Mississippi. In case you don't know where Mooreville is, it's right outside Tupelo. And for those of you who don't know where Tupelo is, if you heard of Elvis Presley, he was born there. So the title of our paper, we just submitted this paper to an academic journal, What Can Blue Do for You? That's the cyan spectral part of the lighting. LED lighting with blue wavelength spectral concentration increases student test performance. I should acknowledge my co-authors. Dr. Michael Mott at the University of Mississippi was the lead on this project, along with his two grad students, Reagan Morse and Lauren Saltzman. And we did this study about a year ago. How did I get involved in lighting research? I'm supposed to be doing education stuff, right? I'm a professor of education. We started doing this about 10 years ago, and we started looking at the different effects of lighting on outcomes such as oral reading fluency, how well kids can read. And we mainly did this with elementary and middle school students, also in rural Mississippi. We found that lighting affected their performance. So we wanted to look at, in this particular study with high school students, performance on tests, mainly reading comprehension. So we had a practice ACT exam that we gave them for about 20 minutes. And then we also used a short reading measure also that was a measure of reading comprehension. So, as Mike mentioned, prior research has revealed positive learning effects with cooler color temperatures, for example, the cyan or blue wavelength. Despite these positive effects, when lighting is too cool, it's not as affectively appealing as warmer red wavelength infused light. But as we know, red wavelength infused light, even though it has affective appeal, can increase melatonin levels, causing drowsiness and decrease focus and concentration. So we have sort of a dilemma with lighting in the classroom. Red is more effectively appealing. It might change mood and so on, but for concentration levels, for alertness, we know that the blue spectral lighting increases attention. So the present study employed increased blue wavelength lighting to improve performance while retaining normal luminosity levels, while retaining normal CCT and luminosity levels recommended by conventional research and industry standards. We used IES, which was around 4,000 Kelvin and 500 lux. You can see in these two displays the difference between our experimental and control classrooms. Even though that wasn't detectable by human eye, that shows the difference in terms of the spectral array that we used for lighting in the different classrooms. So here's some photos of Mooreville High School. It's a rural high school right outside Tupelo. This is a high poverty school, and to be honest with you, bringing in lighting systems for them was something that was exciting. They had what we would call probably crappy lighting systems existing previously, probably at least 30, 40 years old. And here's a lower right-hand corner. That's a picture of Professor Mott, University of Mississippi, watching the lighting systems being installed in the classrooms. So to conduct this experiment, as you know, we wanted classrooms in both control and experimental conditions to be on the same side. Classrooms were either on the north side or south side. So we wanted to make sure we controlled the amount of lighting. We blocked the window. The windows are up high with shades to make sure it was all artificial lighting. So we had two control classrooms with normal LED lighting and two experimental classrooms with the blue cyan lighting. And our research question basically, will energy LED lighting with a higher spectral concentration of blue wavelength increase high school students' practice ACT reading test scores compared with control LED lighting? So we had teachers bring the kids in the classroom, and we had the different lighting conditions. For the first 20 minutes before the effects of lighting occurred, we had them take a short reading assessment. We were going to use that reading assessment as a covariate. In case you don't know much about statistical analyses, a covariate allows you to even out your groups more statistically in case those kids bring with them individual differences before they're tested. And we also use random assignment, which is part of a true experimental design. Even though we use random assignment, we had 9th through 12th graders in these classrooms. And in fact, we had more 12th graders in the control classrooms, more 9th graders in the experimental classrooms. So the covariance allows us to even those out a little bit more. So we had 4 classrooms. They were matched, so they were on the same side of the building. We had random assignment, and we first gave them that 20-minute reading assessment before the effects of lighting occurred. And then they took this practice ACT reading test. Our results, we used an analysis covariance using the initial reading measure as the covariate, and then we used the practice ACT score as the dependent measure. And we basically found that energy lighting students scored higher on the practice ACT than control lighting students. You see they averaged about 53% on that score on that measure compared to 45%, which ended up in terms of a 17% advantage overall, which is pretty big given about a 30-minute assessment. So we had positive findings. That's great. What do we do next? Well, as most researchers say, we need more research, right? We looked at one aspect of using different types of lighting on one aspect of performance with high school students, a very short assessment, but we found positive effects. We should continue to look at different wavelengths of lighting and looking at other different measures. You know, we found while maintaining industry recommended levels of luminosity, just changing the spectral wavelength can help students improve reading comprehension. But, you know, in the future, we should probably look at different spectral arrays and look at other outcomes. I mean, obviously, learning is most important, but we might look at motivation, you know, interest, mood, things like that, all things that are part of a student's learning or educational experience. And we want to figure out ways in which we might change lighting during the day. We probably don't want high concentration lighting all day long. We might want to have some transitional different types of lighting. So that's what I think we should look at in the future. So,
let me leave you guys with 4 points, okay? First point I would like you to take away from this is that you can get benefit and increase your energy and alertness by taking advantage of the spectrum of energizing lighting. You can also, you don't have to actually just throw the CCT to very bluish light in order to achieve this. You can get this, you can actually get this from a standard look that's going to be exactly the same as your regular CCT. And finally, by utilizing this light, you're going to increase your focus and your alertness, not only in the classroom, but you could do it at your office, at your factory, or even down the freeway. So I appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you very much for attending.